Okay, so the question is from the Bombard Dogs group, and someone has posted saying, I wanted to know the stories or advice of those who have rescued and lived with multiple dogs, more than seven or eight, not an NGO or an organization, but family with several rescued dogs. How was it? How did it start? How did it go? How did dogs who were out on roads manage at home?
Okay. So I think they are not exactly the same, but some issues will probably be the same. And of course, when we're talking about any case, if we don't kind of personalize it, it's going to be very difficult. So Hannah's question can probably be seen as like a smaller case study, and 7 or 8 will kind of compound the issue. So as an issue, one thing that you see immediately is it's not just the number of dogs, it's also the age group that you have them in. And definitely, I think you're going to have younger dogs kind of bring in a lot more energy, and that kind of can really, it's like a communicable thing, right? It really kind of moves on to all the other dogs. And so you start seeing what you suspect maybe what starts showing as maybe destructive behaviors, peeing all over the place. That's something that you see a lot of when you introduce a new dog. Even for a short period of time, if you introduce a new dog, you're going to see that significantly. But and then fights can escalate. A lot of the so-called problem behaviors, which are really a result of what we call, over adrenalization, or what we call cup filling. So let's look at Ahana's case. So that's kind of the problem that's going to result. I think it's important to remember that it's not going to be a full-time thing. It's very, very time and age related. And, as the dogs calm down, this whole dynamic starts changing. You're going to see it work all over with all the dogs. But I think there is also going to be that initial period, so-called honeymoon period passes, and then it gets bad, or rather it can feel very overwhelming. And that is probably the time when you need a lot of work. With Ahana's case, Kitty, though she was on the roads, I think she was very young. So I have a suspicion that there's going to be not too much of kind of wanting to reclaim that extent of freedom. I know that some of the other people who have gotten slightly older dogs, the dogs will kind of keep insisting that they want to go out at 2 a.m., at 4 a.m. Those kind of problems, I suspect, is not going to be the case in Hannah's and Kitty's case. But with older dogs, I think we will see that. So Hannah, I've not gotten to your question yet. I'm still kind of going in the generic part, and then we'll get to the specific one. So all of this is going to take a lot of work, and as you can imagine, it's definitely going to be very specific to the individual, the household. How many rooms do you have? How many gates do you have? How many doors do you have? What spaces you have access to? That level of detail is required to identify solutions, because a lot of it is manage till all the dogs are kind of reaching a point of a little bit more sanity, right? Or what I call baseline. It's, kind of calm down till you reach that calmer state. How do we enable activities that will not continue to adrenalize them, will not continue to send them, what we call at BHARCS, fill the cup up. How do we do that? And so that is going to be very individual. So Ahana, let's talk about your case. How old is Loki?
So Loki is around 4 years old and Kitty is like 4 months.
Okay. And how are we with social contact outside of Loki? What does Kitty get?
So right now it's mostly only Loki. We've just started like taking her out for walks and stuff, and she gets like the streeties who come to like sniff at her and stuff. She's pretty scared of like most of the dogs outside, but some who are friends with Loki, they see me, they come, and she kind of just lies there and let them like sniff all this. It's not like a lot of playful or anything.
Is there possibility for friendship with some streeties for Kitty?
Yeah, I think it's like slowly we're kind of getting there. Like it's just like going very slow. I'm just letting them do like at their own pace, but
Okay.
it's happening.
Okay. So I have a nagging suspicion that that might be your most effective solution, because how old is Kitty?
Like 4 months. I think.
4 months, right?
4.5.
It's that kind of a mad face, right? They're like crazy puppy energy that they have. And I have two sets of puppies that I've been observing. So there is Double Dose and Smiley on the back, and there is a new one in the front that I've just named her Lusu, because she's just like the amount of energy she has. She's just turned up out of nowhere. And I've been just observing, them, what they do. So there's a lot of, I mean, play that they engage in. And when we talk about play, I think so far we've only been looking at cup filling, cup emptying, what behavior, so on and so forth. But if you include sensory integration and things like that, and functional movement and things like that, I think there's a lot of that rough and tumble movement, rolling, balancing, legs up in the air and hand, paws down. There's a lot of that kind of movement as well. And I have not managed to read Julia's book on how to build a puppy, but I know that the conversations we've had back then is there's a lot of, balance related movement that is a big part of that age that they need to. So I think there is this huge sensory input that comes in terms of proprioception and some amount of interoception as well that is kind of coming in. And I think, Sajani, you can talk about interoception a little bit more. I know you've been kind of looking at it. But proprioceptive movement and the volume of information that comes in through proprioception, right? So proprioception is your knowledge. So if my hand is up here, I know. I don't have to look in the mirror to know my hand is up here. There is input going in, but input from how many places? Input from here, input from here, input from here. There's a lot of input going in. Calculate to know it's here, and then to move it up here. All recalibration. So just imagine it, and it's coming from every point of your body that you're mindful of. So it's not like you need to look at your feet and say, okay, right leg forward, move. You just know it, and that input is coming in. So just imagine the volume of information that is coming in. And when we talk about the brain having to process all this and calming down, imagine what a powerful thing it can be, right? That is kind of, I think, why things like balance exercises in yoga play such a critical central role in calming you down. I suspect it has something to do with this area, right? Which is the more you're challenged physically, not from a run, but, navigate those spaces. I think the more your brain kind of that is the function of the brain at that age. That is the bulk of the requirement of that age. Learn where your legs are. And you'll see puppies are not aware. They're constantly stumbling and they're still learning. And they have been given this, computing power, to put it very simply, to learn and, calibrate, recalibrate. Oh, my leg ends here. And you'll see that computation fails when they hit their teenage phase. Because they suddenly will start growing in weird ways, right? Like suddenly their legs will grow terribly long and, their body is up here and their legs are down there. And you'll see them starting to stumble and fall because all those calculations have gone for a toss. With sensory integration, I remember Els talking to us about it. So if you do a surgery, for instance, you may be under the impression that we did the surgery and we fixed the underlying issue, but you've cut off all the nerves around there. So that input that needs to go from that place where you did the surgery to the brain to say my leg is here, that input is not going in. And so the way you use your limbs is going to vary significantly, and there's a relearning process involved. And the reason I'm bringing all of this up is I think that activity that I see these puppies engage in. On the farm, it's very easy. There are mounds of mud, there are stones, there are logs, there are other dogs. And I think they get a lot of that rough and tumble, move, balance, all of that out here that our dogs don't get. So trying to introduce that in your house is one way to do it. We can talk about some of the sensory integration activities that we were doing, just small. Don't do snuffle mat. Instead, do a sniffing exercise by putting a bunch of obstacles all around so that they have to climb over, climb under. See if you can maybe get like a board, a table, something that you can put on the ground, elevate it, create an incline so that they have to climb. If you have like an old ramp, I used to use the old car ramp that I was not it didn't work for the car, but I was using that. This is India, so you can even go to a carpenter and just get them to do a longish, wooden board, and put some sand on it when they're painting it, so it gives you that traction. And think of a playground, right? Think of a jungle gym, that monkey bars and things like that. This going up and coming down and all of that. I think, and again, the mental model is yoga, balance activities. I think of those and enabling that, enabling climb, get down, don't fly off and jump down, but down, 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 up, 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 under, getting them to crawl under chairs. So creating that kind of, tents, so that, and you can even use treats that you have scattered all over, but you have to crawl under. Those kind of movements. And of course, we are not standing there saying, yes, go ahead, do it, yeah. Like, don't over adrenalize it. Just let them explore. We don't really need to add to the madness. I think they do a pretty good job of it. That's number one. And the number two observation out of these puppies was that, so back here, Double Dose and Smiley, the mom and the uncle and the dad were like, can't keep up with these mad puppies. The younger sibling, the older sibling, Madonna is the older generation, last generation, she was keeping up. Even in the front, the new one that has come, Chaita and Dude, the parents are like, can't keep up with this energy. And Chiru is grandmother age. She is like, I want to show you a lesson or two. Like, that's the state of mind she's in. She gets very agitated. But who are the ones keeping up with that energy is Iti and Yaya. So I usually don't recommend that anybody use teenage dogs as mentors. You probably heard me say this, but I think in the presence of such young puppies, teenagers are pretty good friends, because they're probably the only ones who can keep up with this madness. And I don't think, so what struck me a lot is how on they are for how long a time. How much can you engage them? I mean, how much can you keep doing it? You can't. I don't think you and I can keep up and engage them enough. I think their requirement for engagement, for social contact, for social learning, for movement is so high because they're rapidly developing. And I don't think we can keep up. But I think teenage dogs can. So finding a teenage dog friend, taking her for, 1 or 2 meetings with that friend, maybe once or twice a day, once a day if possible, twice a day, great. If you can, you have to see whether it's cup filling or cup emptying, may also be a very powerful thing. And so that's the second thing that kind of comes to mind. That, I mean, it's been a long time since I have had puppies. So I'm just, basing it on observations with, these two, the three puppies around me. And then the third thing is keeping track of the timings and preempting it. So I know you're going to wake up at this time, and I know once you wake up, it's all madness. So, as soon as you wake up, I have these things ready. As soon as you wake up, it's like, some of those parents are like, oh, you're up, you have to go to basketball, you have to go to this, you have to go to that kind of a thing. And again, that's not a very good example, but what I'm trying to say is, like, keep those things ready, preempt it. Loki will need his downtime. So you'll have to find a way to engage Kitty in, like, I'm taking her away. Please go do your thing. So again, plan for it, right? Like if you're going to be doing bone chewing, post bone chewing, Loki gets downtime, sleep time, while I take Kitty, go to, either go meet her teenage friend on the road, or we're going to go to another room and we're going to do balance activity, something along those lines. So you are planning to take her away. I think those are things that you can try. And just saying it out aloud makes me realize, my God, this is going to be exhausting for you. Best of luck. Hang in there. It passes. Unlike human children who are going to be in juvenile phase for 24 years, we are looking at 24 months and it'll pass. So just hang in there. But these are some of the ideas that come to my mind. Saujanya, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was just recollecting Sammy and Zoe. So, because I remember coming to you exactly with the same issue where we had brought in Zoe. She was a very young puppy. Sammy was 5 years old, and they were getting into like this mad running phases, and we didn't know what to do. I think one of the biggest thing that helped them was they were not sleeping enough, and they were having very, poor quality sleep because they were exposed to the outdoors quite a lot. So obviously a lot of like overwhelming stimulation from the outdoors. So I think I remember Jamie also, if you remember Jamie from the office dog also, who was constantly nipping, constantly like, going at us. And we were doing chewing, we were doing all of it. Like, I don't know why he's not calming down, and we realized he was not sleeping at all. So I think sleep is probably another thing that I would kind of look at. And you did mention like interoception as well. And I think the more they are like lower on the cup, which I think when they do interact and get the needs of that particular developmental phase, they also build a great interoception, ability, which is basically listen to your body, right? Like, when you're hungry, when you're tired, when you're done with a certain thing. So I feel like right now Kitty is not able to do that either with Loki, because there is also, of course, like cup filling kind of interaction between the two of them. Maybe with the kind of interactions Sindoor mentioned, she can also develop that interoception for herself, and also regulate her play. Like when I'm done with the play, depending on her needs and where she's okay, and also read the communication from the other dogs as well. So I think yeah, that can be a great way to develop that as well, because like as much as I've been reading it, I think if they lose the ability, then the whole point of I trust my dog becomes a little bit pointless, because they've not developed their own internal ability to trust themselves, right? Like make those decisions. So I feel like before we start saying I trust my dog, they need to also be able to develop that ability to say I'm hungry now, I'm done now, I need to relieve myself now. And I think this is a great phase for her to develop that and actually keep at it, because I know that you're going to start trusting her with her decisions in the future, right? So I think this is a great time to do that as well.
Yeah, and something interesting that came to my mind while I was talking about this is, you remember when I did the TEDx talk in Chennai, and there was another speaker talking about gentle parenting, and she was talking about, and I don't know much about parenting and human parenting and those milestones, but she was talking about an example that kind of is interesting here. She was talking about this phase that children go through, toddlers go through, where they apparently have a need for vertical movement. So, and if you, again, this is a proprioception based developmental phase thing, right? And she's like, if you don't meet that, the child can then start coming across as cranky, hyperactive, so on and so forth, a lot like what we see in our dogs. And we don't even know that this is actually a need. And so they might start seeming destructive about furniture, because they're now climbing on top of your sofa and table and things like that, not out of curiosity, they're not counter surfing. That's not it. The need there is actually vertical movement. And so if you can actually enable them to climb up by, either taking them to a facility where it's available. And in our case, thankfully, the dogs are not interested in vertical movement, so horizontal. So we can probably enable that at home or, in some of the outdoor spaces that we have. But there is that, not flat surface, like you said, not just tiles, right? A lot of other kinds of movement. It never occurred to me, like if we would see a dog, a lot of people will probably say, I mean, if you see a child climbing onto the table, he's naughty, he wants what is on top of the table. Apparently that's not the case. He just wants to climb a table. He just wants to climb, not necessarily the table. And that looks very frustrating. What is the need that I'm trying to meet? I'm giving you everything that's there. I don't get it. I'm wondering if there are aspects of movement like that with puppies that we may not fully understand, but yet we try to enable it. That's something that I would love for you to try out.
And the other thing, sorry, just to add to what you were saying, the movements, apparently toddlers even have like a phase of throwing things. So a lot of like these behaviors that we probably might dismiss as naughty or like, very not great as adult dogs, I think probably are just, learning phases for puppies as well. And the other example is my nephew. I think I gave this example last AMA also, and he is so high on energy, and none of us as adults can ever match up to him, because we are like, engage with him, but like within like 15 minutes we are like, okay, we are done. Can you also like, just calm down a little bit? But the moment he is in the company of similar age group kids, you just don't, I mean, you don't even realize his existence around you, because he's so busy, engaging and interacting with similar age group kids. So I think the suggestion of friends of similar age group where they can match each other's energy is also, I think, a great thing. Zoe didn't have that option, I think, because where we were, like, the pet dogs, none of them were similar age group. But the moment they started sleeping quite a bit and we started working on like the things that are cup filling for them, we managed most of the rough play they were going through. But maybe you can also meet that need in the puppy phase that Kitty is having. I think by the time we reached out to Sindhu, she was already past the puppy phase also. It was just that Sammy also pain. There was also pain for Sammy. So I think that was another, like, he was just not ready to engage with Zoe at all, also because of the pain angle for him.
Yeah. The way I see it, some dog under 24 months, those are the only dogs who are going to be able to keep up with this puppy energy. So, some teenage dog, 12 to 24 months may be a nice sweet spot. And if you can find that might really take the pressure off your hands, Ahana.
That's actually the dogs who she's meeting. They are of that age too. They're like around a year old, I think, like the ones who like come and like they love like coming and playing with Loki, but Loki doesn't engage with them. So now they're kind of coming at Kitty. So I think that's good.
Yeah.
And also, like what you said about movement, I am seeing that like a lot, where she's like climbing up onto the bed. Even when she's playing, she like crawls under the couch. She goes into the toy basket. So yeah, I think like that's not like naturally coming out. So if I just like build on that and try to.
Yeah. It may even help to leave Loki behind, with something to chew on, or post chewing where he can take a nap. It might be a good me time for him, and take Kitty out to say, come on, let's go meet your teenage friends, and you do what you need to do. Yeah. And keep us posted on how it goes. And please document wherever possible. Even if it's just taking down notes, on a journal and things like that. I think it'll help us all to see how we can put some of these seemingly simple ideas, right? That's the thing, right? Like a dog climbing on the bed into it looks more like they're getting into trouble, and we spend a lot of energy trying to get them not to do it. What if we went the other way and spent a bit of energy to get them to do more of it? Like, that's what you want to do. Okay, let's do more of it. Let's see what happens. For all you know, that need gets met. And I do see the puppies, like, also it's bursts. They do this in bursts, and then they kind of pass out, or all on top of each other, and then they'll wake up again, and there's a little bit of this madness kind of a thing. So I think you will get downtime. But yeah, you're in for a difficult year. So hugs to you. But yeah, I think we can make it work. Okay. Any other question?